It's a privilege to have you with us, Mr. Ratan Tata, on Times Now for the first time. It's been a tough last few months for you. What was your toughest moment?
I think there was no toughest moment. There were many moments of great tension when there was a sudden act of aggression or when there was an assault on or intimidation on some of our people. Because on a big project like this, you need to have the motivation and the enthusiasm of the people who are on the site. And they look to you, they look at your eyes when you tell them that they have to work in that environment. And you have a responsibility for their safety and for their family's comfort level when they're working there. So those have been tough moments when a contractor's employee or our employee was either assaulted or intimidated, or even outside that, individual people in the area, if anything happened. This was an issue of sadness for us because we didn't come there for that reason.
Mr. Tata, you spoke about being caught in the political crossfire. But we in India have known about corporate rivalries as well. They've been age-old in this country. What do you think really happened? Political crossfire or corporate rivalries?
Certainly there was political crossfire. There's no doubt about that. That was out in the open. And I think it's an unfortunate crossfire because I think the Nano project can come and go many times in a state. But what does happen is a state like West Bengal requires to rebuild the confidence of investors again, and each one of such events detracts from that. As far as corporate rivalry is concerned, there has been from time to time statements from various sources of involvement in these affairs of fueling the flames or funding the activity by vested interests. They may be corporate rivals, or they may be vested interests of one sort or another. And India is a place where this happens, where people stoop to tremendous depths to live with the protection of days gone by.
Finally, in that meeting with the Bengal Chief Minister, Mr. Buddhadev Bhattacharya, what really transpired? What did he tell you? What did you tell him?
Well, first of all, the Chief Minister is somebody I admire tremendously. I went there because of him, and I would be there today because of him. So I would say that meeting was perhaps my hardest meeting that day, because I was, in a way, felt I was having to give bad news to both of them, which was the last thing I wanted to do. And then when I had to tell them that we had a time-bound project and we couldn't just wait, as we had been doing, and the plant had remained closed for about a month, then they started to state quite firmly that they couldn't agree with this decision, and this was a big blow to them. So they were very predictably quite distressed. It's to the credit of both of them that we agreed that we should, while we take the Nano project out, that we don't say bye-bye to West Bengal. And that was never our intention. We have no dispute with the government of West Bengal.
It is just the opposition.
It's just the opposition, and quite frankly, we've dealt with opposition before, but never opposition that whose modus operandi is agitation, aggression, intimidation, constantly.
Are you trying to say there was never an attempt by the opposition to really look for a solution, even despite the intervention of the governor, Gopal Krishna Gandhi?
No, I would say not. And if there is a an issue that one has. After all, we were supposedly the incumbents of land that Mamata Banerjee thought was illegally acquired by the West Bengal government. And if she were truly interested in the farmers, one would have thought that she or someone from a party would approach us and ask us what we would do for her constituents. And I'm sure that we could have worked together in terms of community development, jobs, etc., to satisfy her. But that was not the case. It was an attack on the government. We were the victims, if you might.
Mr. Ratan Tata, you're on the Prime Minister's Advisory Council. You're the chairman of the Investment Commission. And the entire corporate India was rooting for you throughout this imbroglio, if you can call it that. If Mr. Ratan Tata's investments are not secure, many would say, whose investments are secure in this country?
Yeah, I hesitate to give you the answer I'm about to give. But in India, for the very reasons that you mentioned earlier, there are many who would find a solution for this problem which we could not find. And those solutions work in many cases, but in each case, I think it depreciates from the fabric of the value system in the country. So if somebody publicly or privately says we could have found a solution, I'm afraid that option was not open to us, so we chose not to have that as an option.
Do you feel let down that the center didn't step in? Could they have?
I don't know whether they could have, but to the extent that some of the political parties in a covert kind of way supported Mamata Banerjee because of their own difference with the ruling state government, I think that was sad. But whether they intervened or not was not an issue. I think the covert support was a disappointment.
Mr. Tata, the covert support that you're talking about could only be the Congress, because we're talking about West Bengal. But let me bring you to this question. The statements that came from some political parties just after your announcement for withdrawal, some called it an act of arrogance. Mm-hmm. Some called it left making it into an election issue. How do you react to these statements?
You can only react by saying that those same persons made completely opposite statements at various other times. I think the truth is that, if I might say so, people thought we were bluffing and that we were posturing the fact that we would move if the situation didn't improve and that we didn't have a sustainably cordial environment. And at various times, words were used that we were blackmailing the government, that we were posturing, that we should go, who's stopping us, that the people of West Bengal had decided they did not want us. All those things were said. And some were said by the very persons who then said moving was an act of arrogance or a women fancy of the company. So when we did move, these contrary statements were made. So I've chosen to give them the kind of importance that they deserve, that they're made on the spur of the moment to serve the moment.
Why Gujarat, Mr. Ratan Tata?
Well, we've been courted now by many, many states. I think if one state stands out as a state which acts fast, where truly at the very top, the Chief Minister seems truly committed to making the state prosperous and investor-friendly, something that we really do believe that the West Bengal government is also trying to do, unfortunately, without the total support in the state, that we have been always impressed by what Mr. Narendra Modi has been able to do in terms of administering and managing the state in a very efficient manner. He holds to his word. I think that's, if I could dwell on that a minute, I think that's very important. Industry wants to be assured of something when it wants to move. And more, I think industry is now demanding that we have it in writing, that we sign an agreement. And why? Because very often you hear later that, well, we said this, but it can't be done. There's this law that prevents it, etc. One really has a sense of faith in Mr. Modi that if he were to say that this will be done, it will be done.
And that doesn't come from some of the other sides?
No, it doesn't come from some of the other sides, despite the best intentions of the people, because we are in a democracy, and not all of them have the ability to make things happen.
Mr. Tata, the decision to come to Gujarat was made very quickly. Any specific reason for the urgency?
Well, you know, we had lost a great deal of time in the whole affair at Singur. It was extremely important that we relocate with the least possible loss of time. In fact, as some of our people would say, we really needed to be in a new location yesterday. So the urgency of getting the allocation of land, getting all approvals, getting all of those things in place so that we could have as fast a transition as possible became critical to our decision making. And so while many states genuinely have risen to the occasion and wanted us to come, in many cases, land was either not available or land that was available was not ideally suited for the business that we were in, or there needed to be certain permissions yet to be obtained or approvals. But I think I would like to recognize that the chief ministers of other states have really, really genuinely been trying to have us come there, and a lot of concessions have been made, a lot of incentives have been provided in terms of looking at different pieces of land, etc., to meet all our needs. So it's been a really genuine state-by-state approach to us to relocate the project there, which has been very heartening. And I think I would just like to say that we hope that a project like the Nano is not confined to one plant in one state, that in course of time, in one form or another, we will have plants in these various states where time may not have been so much of an issue as it was on this occasion.
Mr. Tata, also what people would want to know is, when will the Nano be rolled out, and will you stick to the cost, the 1 lakh rupee car?
Okay. I knew somewhere along the line this was going to happen. I just want to say that it would be our endeavor to commence rolling it out as close or within the same timeline that we had hoped. The volumes will undoubtedly be less, but I think we will try to bring the car out in its productionized form within that same time frame, more or less. We've had a terrific setback, but I hope we can retrieve some of that time in some makeshift manner. People have called it Plan B, whatever it may be. As far as the cost is concerned, I surprised people at the time of the launch. So why don't we wait till the car is actually launched? A lot has happened since then. Price of steel has gone up. Various and sundry commodities have gone up. I think it's fair that when the car rolls out, that the company is able to announce the price at that time.
Mr. Tata, last week when you used that expression that somebody held a gun to your head and either they removed the gun or pulled the trigger, that wasn't the first time you used that statement. I think you'd used it in 1989 during that strike in the
Nair
Pune,
strike,
the
yeah.
Rajan Nair strike in 1989, Pune Telco factory.
Right.
What are the similarities that both these incidents hold for you, Mr. Ratan Tata?
In a way, they're very similar. That was very personally addressed to me. I chose to stand up to Rajan Nair, who was trying to infiltrate our factory with a small group of 200 or 300 people, intimidating, assaulting. We had 400 of our employees beaten up outside the gate. About 60 of our officers were stabbed in their apartments. And general morale was very low. I just 15 days after I became chairman. So I was, if you might, wet behind the ears in a manner of speaking. And I decided that we weren't going to accept this. We were going to stand up to it. And I remember one of the senior managers in Pune coming up to me and saying that you want us to stand up to it, but will management capitulate at the end? And in the past, we've been asked to resist, and then when things get really tough, the management agrees, and we look very stupid, and we can't then carry authority thereafter. And I said, no, we'll see this through. And we really did see it through. We did not bow to the pressures. And at that time, there were similar issues of intimidation. And at that time, I said the same thing. I said, you hold a gun to my head, I'm not going to move. You pull the trigger, because he also threatened to kill me. And I said, you pull the trigger or move the gun, but I'm not going to move. We're going to take the same stance. And here also, we were being told what kind of area we needed to build a factory. We were being told what we could or could not do. And we were told that we would not move out, that we were posturing. And when I said we would move out and if things didn't improve, we were told that we were blackmailing. So I said, oh, fine. You pull the trigger, we move.
Mr. Ratan Tata, let me ask you broader questions of the economy. India has begun to export more FDI than actually import it, which means Indian entrepreneurs find more value in going and buying companies abroad than setting them up in India. Is that because finally the red tape in politics and bureaucratic decision making is finally showing?
No, I don't think so. I think there are merger and acquisition opportunities abroad which may not be there in India. It's also very difficult to buy a company in India if you choose to do that, or merge with a company. It doesn't happen very often. The view on mergers and acquisitions overseas is very different. I don't think Tata Steel could acquire 19 or 20 million tons of additional capacity in India. It would take several years to build that capacity on a greenfield basis. So there was an opportunity. The same would hold true with some of the soda ash companies that Tata Chemicals have done, or Jaguar and Land Rover in this case. And the issue is, when that opportunity is there, you have to make a decision. Do you want to take it? And how many other opportunities might there be? And if you feel that this is something that you can add value and taking a long-term view, then you should do it.
Despite Shingur, does Mr. Ratan Tata have the same faith in investments in India, or would you much rather go to a country like China, Indonesia?
No, I'm a very, what should I say, passionate Indian. I'm proud of India. I'm delighted that we've made the kind of liberal moves that we have economically. And I'm a great believer that we can do much more. I have a great deal of frustration also that we're not doing enough, and that the country, in fact, is being held back by vested interests, some of it in the private sector, some of it in the public sector, some of it politically. And that we are not really unleashing the true potential of India. I feel that we can be a major power in the economic power in the region. We have intellectual capital, we have resources, we have everything that one might need. We have the same population in a large market. Why should we be so different to China? So I feel a sense of frustration, but I have a great deal of pride in my country and want to see it grow and prosper. Every time we have good news to give and that we're perceived of well overseas, I'm a very proud person.
What next for Mr. Ratan Tata?
You know, I'm sort of at the end of my life.
That's not true. Just a few years ago, I know you said that 2012 is a long way off, and you have a lot to do.
It's getting closer.
But you have a lot to do. So what's next on your agenda?
Oh, I don't know. I think India's going through a very interesting time. I have a great deal of desire to participate in this growth. I don't mean personally to prosper, but to see India grow, and I think to see the quality of life of the Indian people rise would be something that I would consider a great, a great fascination. Making money is not everything. I think seeing a community develop, seeing children being more healthy, are all issues where I think many of us should have a great sense of desire to participate. And I hope I could make some difference in those areas.
Thank you very much for joining us today, Mr. Ratan Tata, and we truly wish you the very best for all future endeavors that you may have in your mind.
Thank you very much. Thanks.